Configuring the IP addresses on the PC, configuring the basic settings on R1. A lot of this is review from either 467 or 307. I'm going to do some of the same stuff on the switch, and then I'm going to turn you guys over going on step 4 forward to finish up the lab. Okay? And again, all I'm looking for from you guys is the packet tracer file. Make sure that you name the packet tracer file, your name, 347, Lab1. Okay? This one this should be a freebie. This should be a free 100%. Okay, easy points. Any questions? Yes, you can record this. I don't care if you record it. Okay? You can publish it to YouTube for all I care. At least put my name in there and give me credit. All right? Cool. So, let's get started. Go ahead and launch Packet Tracer. Yeah. Dude, I booked down there and got back in like less than 20 minutes.
You have wheels on the shoe?
No, I need to start getting back to the gym, man. I need to start training again. I've had problems with my sciatic nerve, and I haven't been able to train, and it's killing me. For those of you who don't know, I train jiu-jitsu, and I competitively, I go to competitions and throw people around and get thrown around myself. There's some killer video out there on the internet of me getting armbarred from like back in April.
2 million hits?
Yeah, something like that. I don't know. Probably like 2 hits. Okay, so for this, I'm going to use a 2901 as my router. It doesn't specify what you have to use either. So if you don't use this, if you use something else, oh, it does specify. Excuse me. I apologize. So they're looking for a 1941, which there's not a 1941 in here. There is?
The second one.
Updated? Oh, wow. Okay, fine. All right, so 1941. Set at 2960 is your switch. And it's set at just a regular generic PC. Right? I think that's right. Yep, and yeah. Okay. And a lot of this is if you're using the physical setup, the actual physical equipment. All right. So, part 1. Cable to network is shown as in the topology. Checking something out here real quick. So R1 gig 01. To cable it, come down here to connections and just select copper straight through. And I'm left clicking on everything. So it said gigabit 01 to fast Ethernet 05. Where I'm getting that from is right here. That's gigabit 01, fast Ethernet 05 on your switch. So fast Ethernet 05 is right there. Okay. And if I look again, fast Ethernet 06 to PCA. Again, a straight through copper connection. Select fast Ethernet 06. And your fast Ethernet. You're done. Okay? So everything's cabled. I'm going to go ahead and change this so its host name is R1. and it's the switch is SW1. Okay, you can go to the config tab and do that because you can change the display name right there. R1. SW1. Okay. And this is PCA, I believe, is what they had it up there. So I'm going to that display name PCA. So PC-A. PC-A. This was actually S1 and R1. This is actually S1. Okay, so now, my topology looks pretty much like what you have in your lab. Everybody see how I did that? I went into each device, went to the config tab, changed the display name. Any questions on that? You got that? Yes?
For the cables, can I just use any RJ45 cables, or do I have to use this particular cost?
I'm not sure. You should be able to use the RS-232 cable, the rollover cable, the powder blue cable, the Cisco cables. That should work too. It should be the same as the Cisco. So 8N1, 9600 baud. That should work.
Where can I find it?
The powder blue cables, there's a whole box of them in there. Yeah, you may need a USB to serial converter. There's a couple in there as well. You have to kind of think for. Huh?
Regionals.
What?
Regionals, so we never got back.
What? Never got what rat?
Serial cables?
For.
Lab.
Really?
They call them cables.
Oh God, you guys are lucky I'm a network engineer. Here, Sam, take this. I got like 1,000 of these at work, so keep it. Yeah. All right, so back to our lab. So part 1 is done. Configure basic device settings and verify connectivity. Part 3, configure and verify SSH. Part 4, configure and verify security features on S1. All right. So I've cabled the network topology, initialize and reload the routers and switch. Again, in packet tracer, to re-enable it, you just got to find the power switch, click it off, click it on. It just kind of wipes the config. No big deal. As you can see, it's loading now. Okay, step number 2, initialize, part number 2, configure basic device settings. So here's where it's kind of a little bit of a review. Configure an IP address on PCA. Now if we go back and look at the IP address, PCA's IP address is 172.16.99.3, 24-bit subnet mask, and its default gateway is 99.1. So we bring up PCA, and I go to its physical settings here. I can, hold on a second, I'm just checking something out here real fast. Oh, neat. Okay, you can change out modules and all kinds of other stuff on this as well. Okay, I can give it a static IP address, okay, or DHCP. I can look at, click on the fast Ethernet here and give it the IP address of 172.16.99.3. I believe that was what it was calling for. Yep, 99.3. 24-bit subnet mask, so I gotta switch that third octet to 255. All right. They go back to settings under gateway 172.16.99.1. That's it. There's all kinds of other things that you can do from the desktop. Okay. It gives you a text editor, IP communicator, traffic generator, VPN terminal, command prompt. Okay, you can manage the software that's on here. You can install an operating system. Right, and it'll give you, it's good for traffic generation, etc. So if I go to a command prompt, I type in, say, IP config, you can see those IP changes that I made right there. Cool? Good. We're done with this PC for now. The good thing about your web packet tracer, if you bring up something and you click the X, you don't kill the program. It's still running as a background process. So, let's see what's next. Shall we? Part 2. Step 2. Configure basic settings on R1. There's R1. First thing I want to do is I want to disable this configuration dialog. So I'm going to say no. Now we hit return. Now we get to my router prompt. Okay? So, first thing I need to know is how to get into a mode in which I can do configuration. So, what you're looking at right now is just general standard user mode. Very limited in what I can do. Okay? The help command is question mark. And that will tell you the different types of commands that you can run from this mode. As you can see, not a whole heck of a lot. In order to actually do any programming of the router or switch or whatever, I have to enter into user exec mode or user privilege mode, which I have to type in enable. Especially when I boot up a switch for the first time. My prompt changes from a greater than sign to a hashtag sign or pound sign. Now I know that I'm in a mode where I can do a lot more commands. If I hit the question mark now, you can see I can do a lot more commands. Okay? There are some configuration commands I can do from here, mostly along the side of memory configuration, flash configuration, moving files, stuff like that. In order to get and actually do anything from a configuration standpoint where I change something, like an IP address on an interface, the host name itself of the device, and to go into further configuration modes like line configuration mode, interface configuration mode, routing protocol configuration mode, etc., I've got to type in configure. And then I have to configure the device from a couple different areas. So if I type in configure and hit question mark, it's only going to let me allow me to configure from terminal. And the actual router you can also configure from memory or configure from flash. So if I type in configure terminal, my prompt again changes to router config in parentheses hashtag. Alright. Now I'm in global configuration mode. Global configuration mode. Okay? If I want to go into an interface and apply an IP address to that interface, I've got to change to interface configuration mode. The way I do that is I type in the command interface. Actually, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. Let's go ahead and change the device name first. So, in order to change the device name, who remembers how to do that from previous class? It's command. Host name, or just host. And I want to change the host name to R1 so it's reflective of what's in the topology diagram. So do that now. Host space R1. And you can see the prompt changes to from router to R1. I've changed the host name. Questions so far? I'm really spoon feeding, guys. This is review 101. Okay, cool. Next, disable DNS lookup. So one of the things that's really, really annoying in Cisco command line is if you mistype something, okay, the router doesn't automatically see that as a syntax error and just return you to the prompt. It wants to look that up against a domain name system. Maybe you're trying to get to another host or another server. You're wanting to try to telnet or SSH to that device. So it starts going through a DNS lookup process. And it'll stay there. You'll wait. You'll sit there and you'll stare at the screen. You get frustrated. You start pounding your hands on the desk. Okay, and then in about a minute and a half, 2 minutes, it'll return to the prompt. To disable that, because I, like a lot of people, have carpal tunnel and I mistype stuff a lot. I want to disable that domain lookup. Okay? So, in order to do that, command is no, because to disable something, we have to preempt it, the command with no. IP domain -look is the command. Okay, that's no space IP space domain -look up, or look for short. That changes that. So kind of if I put that back in, and I type just a superfluous command, like go Google. Oh. I have to be out of configuration mode. You're not going to do it. There. Translating go to domain server, and it's hitting that by a broadcast address because I don't have a domain server. I don't have a DNS server defined. And it'll sit there. We'll wait. You see how frustrating this gets, right? You want to type your command, you want to get your job done, and no, you got to sit there and wait for it to clear. Okay? A lot of white space here. A lot of white space.
Nice weather we're having.
Trust me, when I was first learning, when I was at first at CCNA, like back in, there we go, finally. Unknown command or computer name or unable to find computer address. So from here, config T, get back into global configuration mode, no IP space, domain -look. Now, if I exit out, and to exit out back to privileged exec mode, you can type exit, but if you're like in interface configuration mode and you're in sub-interface configuration mode, you got to type exit 2 or maybe 3 times. A shortcut key to get all the way back out to privileged exec mode is Control+C. It'll take you all the way back out. Now if I type go, unknown command or computer name, it disables that DNS lookup. Okay, and returns you back to the command. So that's a long explanation for letter B. Configure IP, interface IP address as shown in the addressing table. So, if I remember correctly, that was on gig 01. And yep, gig 01. That's 172.16.99.1. Now, interesting, right? That's PCA's default gateway. Okay, one quick piece of trivia here. One quick piece of trivia here, or question. My PC's default gateway is here. Why is it not here? Anybody care to guess? Why is it not the switch?
It doesn't have that.
What?
They don't have IP.
They don't have IPs? Yeah, they do. Look. Switch 1, VLAN 99, 192, 168, 99.11. Switch controls where traffic goes? That sounds like a default gateway to me.
Switch only deals with MAC addresses.
Switch, but there's an IP address there.
That's for MAC.
The switch does not do what?
Routing.
The switch does not route. Okay? This is a layer 2 device. This is a layer 3 device. The switch is going to handle your MAC address table, your CAM table. Remember we talked about that on Monday. It's not going to route any packets. Now there are other PCs here in the local area network on this 192.16.99 network. You don't necessarily have to go to the router to talk to those. The switch will handle that traffic. Okay? But the default gateway is for when I have to get outside of that LAN to route traffic. That's why you point to the router. Cool, so 99.1, Class C. Big T, int for interface mode, G0/1. That puts me into interface configuration mode. And the command to add that IP address is IP address, or IP add for short. The address, space, the subnet mask, enter. Now, there's one other step that I have to do on an interface. Anybody know what that is? What does no shutdown do? Turns the interface on. If I just put the IP address in there and I don't turn it on, like right now, if I look at the running configuration, so if I exit all the way out and I do a show run, which is the running configuration, if I look at gigabit 01, I can see it's in shutdown mode. So I've got to go back into that interface and shut it down. One quick item. Remember this. Remember the do command. What the do command does is if you are in a interface or global configuration mode or line configuration mode or whatever, you preempt a command that's normally done in privileged exec mode, it won't work. But if you preempt it with do, it will. For example, if I go into interface G01 and I type in show run, it doesn't work. Doesn't work. But if I preempt it with do, it will. That kind of saves you a little bit of time and frustration of going in and out of different configuration modes. Kind of remember that. Nice little shortcut. All right. So if I go into that and I type in no shut or no shutdown, it turns it on. Now, when I go back out to Packet Tracer, you can see that my interface here has turned to green, right? And it'll sync up with the switch here. Should sync up with the switch here momentarily. I hope. We're going to configure the switch anyway. Okay, so that's the IP address. Oops. Assign class as the privileged exec mode password. Okay, so privileged exec mode is when we type in enable. All right. So if I exit out all the way back to the prompt and I type in exit again, when I come to that prompt, I'm in regular user mode. When I type in enable, I go to privileged exec mode. What this is asking me is to assign class as a password so that it prompts me for a password in order to get into privileged exec mode. Because if I get into privileged exec mode, that means I can do commands and all kinds of other stuff. I need a password to protect that privilege. So if I go into configuration mode and I type in enable password and then give it the password, that sets it. Now, if I do a show run, you can see the enable password is set to class. I get back out to user mode. Now when I type in enable, or I can just type in EN for short, it prompts me for that password. When I type in that password, and it doesn't show you the characters, it allows me to get in. Assign Cisco as the console and VTY password and enable login. So, assign Cisco as the console and VTY password, enable login. So how do I do that? Config. I now have to go into those lines. The console line is when you actually physically plug into a console cable. So if you look at the physical setting here, this port right there, you see it's like it's kind of hard to see. It's a powder blue. That powder blue cable that I handed Sam is a console cable. It would hook into a serial port on my PC. I can set up a terminal emulator, and then use that as to gain console access, like what you see here on the CLI. That's that console line. It's actually, I'm sorry, the console line is actually the one here with the yellow above it. Excuse me, I apologize. I'm getting ahead of myself. The console is with the one with the powder blue. The yellow are the actual Ethernet ports, and the black one is aux, which aux can be set as either a port to hook up a modem, or can be put as an alternative console port. Okay, so to get into that console line, I type in line con and its number, which is 0. All right. Now they want me to assign Cisco as the password. So, very simply, password Cisco. Now, the VTY lines are used for remote access when you use a specific protocol, such as SSH or Telnet, to remotely. You're not physically connected to the box, but you want to reach out across a network and Telnet or SSH to one of its IP addresses. It's a virtual terminal line that you can set up privileges on. So line, VTY, and there's actually several of them. There's up to 16. So to set this for all of those lines, you type in 0, because we start counting at 0 in computer science. We don't start counting at 1. We go to 15, which will be the 16th line. Okay, and then again, type in pass Cisco. There's one other thing you have to give for the VTY line. You have to type in the command login to force that login to occur. Otherwise, it won't work. If you type in login without a password, it'll say, well, yeah, login's enabled but no password set, and it'll kick you out. If you type in password without login, it'll say password set but login not allowed. It'll give you an error. You have to make sure you do both. Okay. Configure a default gateway for, encrypt plain text passwords. So for those of you who remember this from 467, I harped on it and harped on it and harped on it and took points away from you until you finally got it, like in Lab 3. What's that command? Nope. No. Service password dash encryption. Remember this for 467, guys. I took off letter grades from labs because they did not remember this command. Not that big of a deal in 347, huge deal in 467. For those of you who have not taken 467. Remember that command. Okay? Save the running configuration to startup. There are several different ways you can do this. So at this point in time, if I do go back and I do a show run, you can see all these changes I've done. Okay? Actually, I apologize. I did that last command incorrectly. It's service password encryption. It's got to be enabled. I disabled it for some reason. So now if I do a show run, now that password is encrypted. It's no longer class. It's like a bunch of numbers and letters. Don't say anything about the level 7 password, guys. Don't steal my mojo. Don't steal my mojo for those of you who've been in 467. That comes later. Just go with it, all right? Just go with it. All right, so this is the running configuration. All right, you see all those changes. But if I do a show start, which is the startup configuration, so if I were to reboot this router right now, that running configuration has not been saved, it won't work. If I do show start, no startup configuration is present. So all that I've done, white, gone. If I rebooted this router, I'd have to do all that stuff all over again. So there's a couple different ways that you can copy that running configuration to the startup configuration. There's several different ways. You can type in the command copy running-configuration startup configuration, startup-configuration. You can copy run space start, or you can do write to memory or just WR. Several different ways you can do that. I, being the lazy-ass engineer that I am just going to do WR. If I hit the up arrow, I can go back over my last commands. Boom, it's there. Okay? For those of you who have not taken me, you will learn one thing in this class. Network engineers are inherently the laziest people on the planet. If there's any way they can figure out a way to do something easier with less keystrokes, they will figure it out. Because the majority of us are computer science nerds anyway. So learn the shortcuts. It makes life a lot easier. All right. So we're done with the router. Now let's go do all that same stuff on the switch. So let's go back to the configuration, the topology. You can see everything's screened up here. That's great. So I'm going to go to the command line of the switch. Same type of command structures. Enable mode. Configure the device name, which is going to be S1. So I got to go to global configuration mode. Host S1. Disable DNS lookup. No IP domain dash look. Class as a privileged exec password. Enable pass class. Cisco as a console VT.